feeding tube awareness, my feeding tube journey. Psych! I'm just gonna talk about my trauma. I almost starved to death, but I'm here and I'm alive. So this is gonna be a video about my feeding tube journey, from where it began to where I am now. That's my dog Maisie. She might be kind of running in and out. I'm gonna put pictures in every once in a while, but this is mainly gonna be just like me telling you my story versus showing it to you. I have a lot of videos that kind of relate to my feeding tube journey. Like I have a video of the very first time that I got a feeding tube, and I, you know, filmed a little vlog of that hospital stay. I filmed getting my GJ tube. Like there's a lot of videos that I filmed in that moment. I think last week was feeding tube awareness week, and I haven't done anything for like the awareness weeks in at least a year, maybe even 2. But I did want to make a video this week, even though it's late. I'm gonna be giving you guys more of a deeper look into the behind the scenes of what was happening at that point in time. Like I showed you guys some of the like details, like me getting the feeding tube and my adjusting to it, but I left out a lot of the mental and emotional side of things that I want to give you a look into in this video. First of all, I'm just going to start off by saying, if you're new to my channel, hi, are you trying to give me kisses? Are you trying to give me kisses? Oh, I love you. First off, if you're new to my channel, my name is Mickey, I'm 20 years old, and I have something called classical Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. So I have lots of videos on EDS, so I'm not really going to go into what that is here, but that is why I have pretty much all of the problems that I do in my body. One of them being gastroparesis and dysmotility of my GI tract. Alright, let's just start off from the beginning. So I grew up and I loved to eat. I was failure to thrive when I was really young because of the growth issues that I have, and we didn't know a whole lot about that at the time. Ugh, I'm really warm. Ugh, sorry, it's so warm in our house. I can't tell if it's like actually warm or if I just know that I'm like gonna start to get stressed throughout this video. Okay, so I grew up and I was failure to thrive when I was really young. I was always underweight, was never on the growth chart for anything, height, weight, nothing. So I ate a lot growing up, and I had a lot of blood sugar issues, so I was eating a lot more often. So I love to eat. My guts worked pretty well. I've had stomach aches like the whole time that I've been alive. Like I would get stomach aches here and there, occasionally throw up, but nothing too drastic, like just manageable stuff. Do you just want to stay here? Alright, well, she wants to be snuggly for a minute, so we'll just take it. So we'll fast forward to about 2015, where, alright, I guess you're leaving us. Goodbye. This was after I had been first diagnosed with EDS. I hadn't been diagnosed with classical, but I was diagnosed with some EDS at that point. And I'd started to get like nauseous and bloated after I was eating a meal. And I noticed like I would eat a regular meal. Like one time I had a giant smoothie, like just for lunch, and I was almost done with it, and I had to run to the toilet because I was like, I feel like I'm gonna throw up. Like, what the heck is this? And so every time I started to eat a meal, I would get really sick. So I had to start eating smaller meals, but like, you know, it was still okay. Fast forward a little bit later, it was harder to eat, and I had a gastric emptying study, was diagnosed with gastroparesis. Was on medications for that for a while, you know, managed it. Fast forward about a year later, you gonna reverse sneeze on me right now? You're okay. You're alright. Relax. Relax. Good job. If you guys have small dogs, you know what reverse sneezing is. It's the weirdest thing. But if you... Thank you. I'm gonna recap the time before my feeding tube really quick. So I was diagnosed with gastroparesis, had a really hard time eating, and over the course of like a little over a year, my gastroparesis worsened significantly, and I was able to eat less and less and less until I had lost so much weight that I was starving to death. I was underweight, stick thin, my blood sugar was horrendous. Like, that was the worst it ever was in my entire life. My A1C was like shockingly low. It was bad. I was really malnourished. I had no energy, couldn't think. We were told basically if something isn't done like right now, like very quickly, you will die. Like, you will starve to death. And why they made me wait so long to get a feeding tube, I will never understand. But that's for another video and another issue. So that's when I got my very first feeding tube, which was an NJ tube, and like I said, I do have a video of that hospital stay on my channel. And it was like incredible. I felt this burst of energy and I was like, yes, finally, like I'm gonna get nutrition and I'm gonna be better. The first 2 weeks of having my feeding tube were horrible. The formula that I was on was so thick that it was clogging my tube, and every 10 minutes my tube would get blocked and it would build up so much pressure that the like feeding tube tubing in the pump would explode. It would, like, I had formula all over my kitchen one time. It was just like a nightmare. And at that point, like, I wasn't sleeping because I was on 24-hour feeds, so I couldn't sleep because the pump would go off. So like 2 weeks, no sleep, absolutely exhausted, just like raw, and still no nutrition because it wasn't going through. And I was like, I'm done. I had to go into radiology and have them try to like fix it, and they did, and I was like, just take it out, like I'm done. I switched formulas, switched to the one that I'm now on, it's Kate Farms, and it was like incredible. It was thin enough that it went through, and I finally started to get nutrition, and that's where the story kind of picks up. I felt so much better. I started slowly gaining weight and being healthier and stronger. Like, I could think again, and it was incredible. So I had that for 9 weeks, and then I had my surgical GJ tube placed, and that is kind of where the majority of the trauma starts. I don't know, this is gonna be a good video to film. So I don't think I'm gonna be able to make this video. I don't think I'm gonna be able to make this video, maybe. There's a lot of trauma associated with my feeding tube journey, and I thought this would be a really great video to make, and I don't think I can do it. Just going through like the process in my mind, like going to tell all those things, is making me like remember all of the traumatic stuff. And I have diagnosed PTSD. I'm not like, so when I say that I have PTSD, I'm not like, oh, I have PTSD. Like, I have diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder from a whole bunch of medical trauma, and it started with my GJ tube placement. For a very brief explanation, I came out of surgery and I was left alone in a room for over 4 hours with no pain medication. I was like absolutely screaming in pain. I couldn't control it, sobbing. I couldn't breathe. I was turning blue because the pain was so bad. Like, I wanted to die, and it was one of the worst situations of my life. So I don't know that I really want to actually go through all of those stories. Maybe we could turn this video into a little thing about trauma. Medical trauma is something that I have experienced and that a lot of people who are chronically ill have experienced, because unfortunately, like, our medical system isn't perfect and mistakes happen. What happened to me was a mistake. I did not have a doctor assigned to me when I was moved up onto the floor after surgery, and it cost me a lot of trust in medical professionals, and it still affects me to this day. My other single greatest traumatic event was my motility testing in March of 2019 at the Mayo Clinic. It was, I mean, the testing was helpful, but to this day, I can hardly think of that doctor or hear his voice. He has a weird accent that I've never heard before. He's like Russian and something else, some other like small country mixed together, so it's just this unique accent. And the second I hear his voice, my heart starts to race and I instantly like go into panic mode. In fact, like, Russian accents in general will often trigger an anxiety attack or a panic attack, because my body's like, all right, here we go, this is it. And even though it's not, I'm safe, I'm here right now, my heart is racing just from thinking about it. Like, the very worst day of all, I was sitting in a hospital bed. I was having manometry testing, so I had tubes throughout my entire GI tract. Like, they went in through my stoma hole, so in my stomach. It went all the way from my stomach to the very end and out the other end. So like, I had a tube sticking all the way through me. I was awake and I was not allowed to move. It was horrendously uncomfortable, and I had to lay there for over 8 hours completely still, couldn't move, in agony. Like, I felt like I was being tortured while he sat next to my bed and watched the monitor. All I wanted to do was run, to pull those tubes out of me and say like, get away, like to run, and I was stuck. I mean, there are so many more aspects and so many more layers. Like, I had dislocated hips. They had to put me under general anesthesia to place all of these tubes, and so whenever I go to sleep, my hips dislocate. So I woke up and I was in this bed. I had so many joints out of place. I wasn't allowed to move. Like, I was in agony, and there was nothing anybody could do except tell me not to move. And those events over time build up to really scar you. I no longer just blindly trust medical professionals. Like, if a doctor's like, hey, I'm here to help you, I'm like, are you though, or are you gonna hurt me? It's cost me a lot, and it's something that I still struggle with, because unlike PTSD from, say, somebody in the war, like in the military, they get PTSD from combat or whatever, which is completely valid, like 100%, that is trauma. And sometimes those people do have to, you know, be deployed again. But in my case, like, if those like events, those really traumatic events would be my like combat, say, like the trigger of the PTSD in general, I have to continually and frequently go back to the place that hurt me and to the people that have hurt me. I don't know if each time that I go is gonna be another war. Like, I never know which emergency room trip or which hospital stay is gonna be horrible and add on to that trauma, or if it's gonna be okay. But either way, my brain is prepared, and it no longer trusts the medical system, with exceptions for a few select doctors who have stuck by me and been nothing but fantastic, and I trust them with my life. But the rest of them, I'm scared of. And so every time I have to go to the hospital, or every time I have to go to an appointment or whatever, it triggers those memories and that trauma. And it's a really, really hard thing to live with. So this video really took a turn. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to talk about it anymore, or I'm gonna have a full-blown panic attack, and then the rest of my day is just gonna be spent really anxious. I can feel myself like getting worked up, and I don't want to spend the rest of my day trapped in trauma memories. So I see a counselor for my PTSD, and right before COVID happened, I started a specific trauma program called EMDR, which I was really hopeful was going to be helpful, and then COVID happened, so I will pick it up at some point. But learning to deal with the trauma and learning how to manage it has been really helpful, but unfortunately it's an ongoing trauma, and there's not really anything I can do about it. My body's sick, it needs the doctors, it needs the hospital, and I just have to work through it. Yeah, so I don't even know if I'm gonna post this video, because I don't know what I would even call it. Like, feeding tube awareness, my feeding tube journey. Psych! I'm just gonna talk about my trauma. Oh my goodness, I don't know. Well, there you go. I need to go spend some time and distract myself and do some of my mindfulness and some like re-grounding to kind of get myself out of this funk that I'm in. Oh, this is so weird though, guys. Like, I know I've mentioned medical trauma before, but I don't. My camera shut off, sorry. Yeah, I talk about medical trauma sometimes. Like, I know I've mentioned that I have it and that I have PTSD and whatever, but I know I've never really gone into detail, at least on YouTube, of what those traumatic events were. And maybe at some point I'll be in a place where I can, but I guess that day is not today. I don't know what this video was. It started off as feeding tube stuff, and then it turned into my trauma. So yeah, medical trauma is real, and my heart goes out to anyone who has experienced this. You guys are so strong. I know how hard it is for me, and so I know how hard it is for you guys too. That's part of the reason why I want to go into the medical field. Like, right now I'm on track to become a nurse, and I want to work with peds because I want to fight for all of those kiddos who can't fight for themselves like somebody should have fought for me. I keep saying I don't know what this video was, but I don't. But I guess if you're seeing this, that means that I somehow found a way to put it together. Thank you guys for watching, and sorry that wasn't the feeding tube awareness video that I thought it was gonna be. But I love you guys, and thank you so much for being a part of the Stripes family. And I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.